Hello chess friends and welcome to the of Chess channel and welcome back to our composite chess games played by computer series. So in this series we're following some great games that have been played by top engines, and today I've decided to show really a beautiful sharp attacking game played by Stockfish 15 against another top engine Revenge in a beautiful Caro-Kann defense, the so-called advanced variation. The cool part about this game is that we'll see here a beautiful theoretical novelty that Stockfish will show us in the Caro-Kann defense. We'll see now a wild approach that has never been played in chess history, which is really wild when you think about it harder. So many lines have been already explored, but Stockfish will show us really an aggressive method, really a wild method, how to dismantle, how to destroy the Caro-Kann defense. And that's what's really surprising for me, because the theoretical novelty that will show that Stockfish will show, it will be a really wild move g4 in an early stage of the game, seemed quite logical to me, and I was really surprised that no one in chess history, no grandmasters, no intermasters, no FIDE masters have ever played this move g4 in a competitive level. So it was a huge surprise for me, but I think if I would reach maybe this similar position, I would use this method for sure, because in my opinion it's an optimal really wild attacking method that you can use, as I said, in order to destroy the Caro-Kann defense. So let's see now this theoretical novelty played by Stockfish 15 against Revenge in the Caro-Kann defense in the advanced variation. So here Stockfish opened with the move e4. We have c6 by Revenge, which becomes now of course the Caro-Kann defense. We have d4, we have d5, and after move e5 we have reached now the advanced variation. So after move bishop to f5 we have knight to f3, which is now the so-called short variation, and after move e6 so this position becomes now blocked out in the center of the board, which becomes now a directed attack game. What I mean about the directed attack game is not actually that here the pawn structure in the center is clarified. We have here the small pawn chain by black e6 d5, so black will break and enter with the move c5. On the other hand, white should maybe attack here the position with f4 g4 moves h4 and similar stuff, so because this small pawn chain is also showing the direction of the attack. So these are the main two methods. White is trying a kingside attack, black is trying a queenside attack. So we have now bishop to e2 by Stockfish 15, c5. Here Revenge is breaking immediately the position. We have bishop to e3, keeping the position around the square d4 very compact. We have c takes d4, knight to d4, and after move knight to e7, kingside casting. Now a6, and here a6 is perfectly fine. Of course we're preventing knight to b5, then knight to d6, but now the fun really starts. So never in chess history this move has been played. Now Stockfish plays immediately g4, and in my opinion this makes really sense, and I'm not sure why no one played this move. I only see in the database moves like let me see, knight c3, we have here f4 ideas, we have also knight to d2 ideas, c4 is also here an opportunity. So these four moves I see only in the database. No one played ever the move g4, which in my opinion is perfectly fine, because we'll play simply f4, f5. We are trying to attack the bishop here immediately. So as I said, this is a move that I think is not weakening your position too much, because you have, I think, a decent control in the center of the board with a powerful knight, with also your bishop control. We can even fix the position further with the move c3, because there is a rule in chess which says that a flank attack is actually only possible, an early flank attack, if you have your center really closed. And I think the center is closed enough, not maybe because of the pawn structure, because still this is a mobile pawn, the pawn structure is not blocked out, but I think, as we said here, Stockfish has a central grip here around the square d4, so actually black has a really tough time to break and enter here in the center of the board. That's, I think, why this g4 move makes really sense in my opinion. It is a perfect attack, and you can use it maybe in your own games. If you reach a similar position, you can, I think, play here immediately g4 without weakening your position too much. Really wild stuff. That's why I really love these games played by Stockfish 15, because they're showing us new ideas, and in my opinion this is quite a logical move. This is a perfect move. I think Mikhail Tal or someone would play this move for sure, but I'm not sure why it never has been played in chess history. It's a perfect theoretical novelty here by Stockfish 15. So here bishop to g6 was played by Revenge. Now f4 immediately. You see, this is already a wild out position. We have here knight to c6. The problem is now f5 is not good here immediately. You should know also this, because you get challenged here with e takes f5. You can play, of course, g takes f5, but now we first take from black's perspective the knight on d4. You can maybe take out the bishop, but now we'll play simply knight to e2. Intermediate attacking here, you have to play queen to e2, and now we just pick up the pawn. Look at this, and this is already a weakened pawn structure, too much in front of the king. The rook is very active here on this diagonal. The pawn is isolated, so this is not a good position anymore here for white. So after move knight to c6, what you could do maybe is also the move c3. I've analyzed this move. In my opinion, it's also a good move, which keeps the position around the square d4 very compact. And the cool part about this attack is that actually methods like h5 are not working, because now f5 makes again sense. So this, I think, can be really battle around the square f5 in an early stage of the game. Now look at this. You can play again this method, knight takes d4. Now we play c takes d4. You can maybe take it out, but look at this now. Now we take out this pawn on h5. So I think this early g4 move is not allowing some h5 method. So now I see this bishop has to retreat now, and look at this. This one is weak. We can use now the queen into the attack, develop normally queen to e1, queen to g3, and some more stuff. So this is now a weird position here for sure for black. So as I said, you should not rush into the f5 attack, but if your opponent challenges you with the h5 move, then I think again f5 makes really sense. So that's, I think, the beauty about this attack. So after move knight to c6, here Stockfish took knight takes c6. We have b takes c6, and this pawn structure is quite annoying to handle, but so far black doesn't have support. Black would love to play now the move c5 and then d4, which would be a beautiful expansion, then followed with the knight to d5. This is now black's idea to make progress here and then develop the bishop, and maybe then kingside castling. But Stockfish plays here again an interesting move. Stockfish plays now the move knight to d2. In the beginning also it seemed to me this is weird, because what happens if you play d4? Why should you allow this move for your opponent? Actually, this is not working, because here comes the stunner. Knight to c4 would actually be the continuation. Then after d takes e3, look at this, knight to d6. We're attacking the king. You have to step back, and now after knight to f7 we have a discovered check, and you lose the queen here on d8. So this is really not working. So that's why knight to d2 is really quite a provocative move here by Stockfish 15. So we have here a rook to b8, and now bishop to a7 played by Stockfish 15. Again, if you play a rook to b2, this is also not good, because your rook gets locked. So far you cannot also take out the pawn on c2, because you get simply challenged with queen to d4, and now we'll simply grab the rook. So it's not working. If you take out with the rook here, then it's not getting better. Then f5 is disconnecting the bishop from the defense of the rook. So again, it would be, I think, game over here for black. So this is not working. After move bishop to a7, here revenge played rook to a8, attacking the bishop to e3, rook to b8, and now Stockfish decided to change the direction of the attack, played now a beautiful c4 move. Again, it seemed to me that this is a strange idea, because you are allowing again this move d4. Here after move d4, Stockfish simply retreated, and now comes c5. So mission accomplished, I think, also here for black. Black has now a solid pawn structure, has also the supported pass pawn. So this is quite an annoying structure that you can handle the c5 d4. But there is a downside about this sequence, because now the king is a little bit endangered. We can also here deliver an annoying check, and that's exactly what happens. Stockfish attacks first the light horse. It's not allowing this knight to play here on c6. If that happens, of course, then we can develop the bishop and secure the king by castling. So that's why queen to d7. Here the revenge engine is preparing knight to c6, but now knight to e4 is also preparing knight to c5 and knight to d6. So that's why revenge has to take now bishop to e4. We have bishop to e4, and now g6 here was played by revenge. So again, revenge is trying desperately to secure the king by castling. He's trying to play bishop to g7 and kingside castling. So this is, in my opinion, a little bit too slow. Even if you try, look at this, even if you try maybe some other ideas with knight to c6, bishop to e7, kingside castling, this is still not working, because you get this one. We play first queen to f3, attacking the knight. Now you have to protect the knight here with rook to c8, but now with bishop to g3, look at this, you don't have time to play bishop to e7, because finally we'll break and enter with the move f5. And from this point on, I think this game would be a one-way ticket. There's no good ways to secure anymore the king if you castle, then f6 is going to happen. We can then afterwards play g5, queen to h5, rook to f3, rook to h3. I'm not sure which one is really the best move, but I think here black is getting destroyed for sure. So really wild stuff. So that's why after move bishop to e4, Revenge didn't have time to play this developing move, the move knight to c6, played now simply g6. We have queen to f3 anyway, bishop to g7, and now queen to a3. Look how Stockfish just changed the direction of the attack, played now really all over the board, attack the king set, attacks now the queen set, and this c5 becomes now a huge tactical problem. The Revenge has to defend it, plays now queen to a7, but now comes the problem we have here now. This one, queen to a4, comes with a check, and now black will never be able to castle anymore here. Revenge has to play king to f8. So okay, still this is not lost immediately for black, because black can rely on this firm pawn structure in the center of the board, but the downside is of course a little bit the lack of activity. The knight is a little bit loose on the board. The knight has to still use some other squares in order to get into the game. The bishop is a little bit paralyzed by this pawn structure, so far black needs now to make many moves in order to have a decent setup here in the continuation of the game. So rook from a to b1, finally protecting the b2 pawn. We have g5 here. Revenge is trying to disconnect this f4 pawn from the defense of the e5 pawn. This is perfectly fine, but Stockfish sensed of course that here the problem is not this structure here. The problem is now the lack of the connection between these two rooks. So Stockfish is trying now to open the b file in order to attack now the loose rook here sort of on b8. So that's why b4 immediately. Beautiful counter attack here by Stockfish 15. So here the continuation, g takes f4 was played by Revenge, but even if you try the rook to b4 here, if you try just maybe to trade off the rooks and simplify the game, this is not working. Look at this, rook to b4, c takes b4, queen to b4, and the problem is now there is a huge tactical problem here. Queen to d6, bishop to d4 is now huge threat. Let's see, you play maybe something like g takes f4, then we play queen to d6, and there is not a good way anymore to defend this position. You can maybe just play king to g8 or something, but now we play bishop to d4 and the game is over. So actually look at this, the wild thing about this sequence is that actually even the queen gets trapped. Really wild stuff. So you don't have even time here to create some breathing spaces for the queen or something, because you get checkmated here on d8. So the double threat is actually here the trap of the queen, or maybe to get checkmated here on the 8th rank. So really wild stuff already. So that's why rook to b4 is not working. You don't have time to regroup yourself, you don't have time to activate your pieces again. So after move b4, that's why Revenge took here g takes f4. Now we have b takes c5. Now the rook is attacked on b8. We have bishop to e5, and now Stockfish uses this moment and creates a really annoying pass pawn, which is now supported by the bishop on e4, but also is supported by the queen on a4. So this becomes now the huge tactical element of Stockfish, the passer on the c file. So we have now queen to c5. Revenge is trying to include more attackers into the game. We have now rook to b7, trying now to maybe force this kind of line where this pawn is getting closer and closer to the 8th rank. But after move rook to b7, here we have h5. Revenge also tried here to play some counter attacks, is trying now to open maybe the h file and maybe play some ideas of f3, then using maybe the h2 square as an attacking element. So in the continuation, Stockfish plays g5. Stockfish of course is not allowing the h file or the g file to be open. Stockfish is trying to keep everything compact here on both of these files, because the king is a little bit endangered. We have to say so far black doesn't have so many pieces that could attack the king, but so far I think it's very necessary to keep both of these files very locked here for black. So in the continuation we have bishop to d6. So Revenge is trying some ideas of queen to e5, then f3, maybe liberating this long diagonal and trying maybe an annoying checkmate here on h2. So that's why queen to a6 first by Stockfish. After queen to g5, this is only one check, it doesn't matter. King to h8. Now comes this idea, queen to e5, with the idea then to play the move f3. But Stockfish plays a beautiful defensive move, bishop to f3. Is not allowing this pawn to get rolling. So far good defensive structure also by Stockfish. So the position is really wild. I'm not sure whenever we have seen a similar position like this, you see pieces are all over the board, weaknesses, weak pawns, so weak squares, endangered king positions. So it's really a complicated game, I think, here to play. So here knight to f5 was played by Revenge. We have rook to e1, knight to e3, including now another attacker into the game. You don't want to take it, of course, because then you connect both of these pawns, then also this diagonal gets liberated. So far you just leave the knight like this here on this annoying square e3. So rook to g1, we have rook takes b7. If you play knight to f5, maybe to again try to search for new opportunities for the knight, then again queen to b8 is very annoying to handle. Then we can also play some ideas of c7. This is again a messed up position here for black. So that's why after move rook to g1, we have rook takes b7, we have c takes b7, knight to g4, trying this annoying check on f2. So that's why bishop to h4, and now d3 here played by Revenge. Revenge is trying now to promote also here the queen on d2, then followed with d1. But Stockfish plays now, of course, h3, kicking away first the knight. We have now d2. Revenge is making further progress, but now the fun really starts, because we have h takes g4, and look at this, what Stockfish is doing. Stockfish is opening the h file, which is really wild. Stockfish is now really endangered here in the h file, but of course, like usual, Stockfish is calculating this position very easily. We have h takes g4. Now comes first the promotion, and actually Stockfish even promoted to rook here, which is really wild. Now Revenge took the rook here, but with the move b8, Stockfish liberated now this diagonal for the queen, and now after move queen to c8, we have this check. You have this one, king to g7, and now after rook to g4, Stockfish has everything glued together. The rook is protecting now the bishop, and so far also the bishop is protecting now a potential promotion here on d1. So that's why here you have to step back first. We have king to h6. You don't have time here to take, of course, here the rook on this one, because we'll simply take it out. Queen to h8, and here the position is messed up, so you don't have opportunity. So you have to step back. Stockfish plays now queen to d7, is now also preventing the potential promotion here on d1. So far the bishop and the queen are protecting this one. We have queen to d6, queen takes d6, bishop to d6, and now after move rook to g2, actually this is now, in my opinion, completely winning, because this pawn is not weak. It can be taken after a couple of moves. We have here bishop to b4, we have king to g1, getting out of this tactical mess on the h file. We have rook to c8, we have bishop to g5, a very nice check here, then bishop to f4, and now bishop to d2, picking up this very annoying pawn. Bishop to d2, rook to d2, and we have reached now an endgame stage in which, okay, black has two connected pass pawns, but also Stockfish has a passer which is supported by the bishop. It will be supported further also by the rook, so it's now a completely winning endgame here for white. So let's see now what happened. King to g6, bishop to d1, rook to c3, bishop to b3, now getting the king closer, of course, to the action. Very important to play also with your king in endgames. We have king to e5, rook to d7, f5, rook to d2. Now Stockfish played a check, and now of course a4. Now it's time to get the rook behind the pawn and support the further progress of the a file passer. So in the continuation, we have rook to a5, we have king to e3, e5, king to d3, we have king to g5, bishop to c4, and now bishop to b5 locks also now the rook a little bit. The rook is now out of game. So we have here king to f3, rook to a1, we have king to f2, king to c4, getting the king closer to the action. We have rook to a7. Now when this rook moves, it's time to make further progress with the pawn. So sorry, f4 was played by Revenge. We have bishop to c6, not allowing this pawns to make further progress. We have rook to c7, king to b5, rook to e7, now a6, after move e4, and rook to a2. In this position, Revenge resigned. Why did this other engine resign? Because now we have to step back, and the problem is now we just getting with our king closer to the action. You can maybe try to push this pawn further, but the light square bishop is at least protecting the position so far. Now after move a2, a7, pardon me, you have to take out now the pawn. You have now this intermediate check first, bishop to g2, king to g1, and now we just pick up the rook. And so far, again, the progress is not possible anymore. We can play now this one, rook to e2, and both of these pawns are stopped. You cannot even push this pawn further because bishop to f3 is going to happen. So good defensive setup it would be, of course, by Stockfish. Never ever allow the progress of both of these pawns. So it was game over here for black. So incredible game. But let's go back to this theoretical novelty. I think it's really interesting what Stockfish played here. As we said, in this position after move a6 g4. As I said, I didn't see any games in the database. The only games that I found with this particular move were some bullet games on Lichess. You have also this database of some Lichess games on this beautiful chess website. So as I said, only in Blitz bullet games here on Lichess, these games have been played. This particular line, in my opinion, really a line worth to study if you want to surprise your opponent. If you reach similar position in the Caro-Kann, this is the perfect method, really an aggressive method against this very solid defense. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the Caro-Kann defense for sure. If you want to see more about the Caro-Kann defense, check out our series so far with some other great games played by top engines, but also played by top grandmasters. And if you want to see more aggressive top engine games, check out our Combat Chess Games Played by Computer series. Here's also our playlist. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.